Yeah, it's been a process. You know, you're the new coach in town. So as soon as we got in, we went out to eat, trying to get to know each other, outside of the building a little bit, because you don't want it to all be about football when you're getting to know a guy, right? So we try to get to know each other, and it's been good. It's been good, especially getting out here on the field, seeing how he works, seeing how his emotions work, seeing how he leads. So learning a lot about each other.
And for you, you grew up, obviously, the son of a coach. How did that shape your path into the coaching profession? And, what's that been like for you?
Yeah, shoot. I mean, I've been around the game since I was a little kid, much like these coaches' kid out here today. Coach E's kids and Coach Kitchen's kids and all these guys' kids. We've been around our whole life, so it's kind of, I don't want to say it's all we know, but it's a lot of it, right? So just being in that grind from January to the next January and learning how to grow a football program and getting to that end goal and then doing it all over again. It's a process, and I've kind of in these last 5 years I'm learning how to, as a player, I like to have control. I had the ball in my hands every play. You had control of the game. But as a coach, you got to coach these guys to have control. These guys are running the show, so it's a different perspective, but I like it.
Mike Barber from Richmond, good to meet you. Such that it is.
Yeah.
When you have a veteran quarterback, a guy who started for 2 years, how much of a two-way street is there in terms of, are you getting a lot of information from him on what he likes, what he's comfortable with, what works, or is that not yet part of the process?
Oh, that was the process when we first got in, right? He's voluntarily up there with us a lot, just because he's in that grad program, and his class schedule's not as heavy as some other guys. So he's in our meetings, kind of, if he likes out-breaking routes, let's throw out-breaking routes. If he likes this play, let's throw this play. It doesn't matter what we like as coaches, right? If the trigger man does not like it, it's probably not going to work. So let's find things that he likes, that he's good at, and let's get the best we can out of that.
When you get this job and you find out, he's coming back, how do you scout him? Do you watch last year's games, and what are some of your impressions of his physical skills before you ever get on the field with him?
Yeah, for me, coming as an offensive coordinator, I was watching some offenses last year, and I was, in December, I was watching Virginia and, seeing what they did good and how they operate, and I was like, wow, they got a talented quarterback here. So that's probably why they're pretty good. So just watching that tape, seeing what we can get better at, because, Brenden knows this, there's always things you can grow, especially in a new offense, right? And that he wants to take it to that next level. And he wants to show that he can adapt to this offense, and his game travels, if that makes sense. So his game's traveling well so far, so keep it going.
You'll get used to these weird questions from me, but you said you guys went out to eat. Do you remember where you went?
It was my first or second day in town after recruiting. I think we went to Moe's Barbecue. So, and I'm learning to love Charlottesville's food. So, my wife and I are very excited about that.
Well, you made a good choice there.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Hi, Coach. This is Jackie from 24/7. Nice seeing you.
Nice seeing you.
So one of the things that you told when we spoke earlier was about Brenden Armstrong, that you were struck by his ability even before you were named the quarterback's coach. You were looking at offenses. But when you got to UVA and you got spring ball, what's something that struck you about him? What's kind of stood out about his ability, or just about his leadership style?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, his frame stuck out. I didn't know he was, that thick, that heavy, and he has a good frame on him, physically. On the field, the ball comes out of his hands pretty quickly, right? And you see it on tape, but how accurate he is, from throw to throw. I'm talking about, a 5-yard out, a 40-yard post. He's very accurate, which is something I love as a quarterback, especially, as a wideout, you got to love it too. So he can put his foot in the ground and get it out. You saw it on tape, but it's different. It's different once you see it live.
And I know Jay right now is so busy with baseball right now, and obviously he can't make it out to a lot of practice. How does that relationship work now with you, specifically because he can't get to practices as much or meetings?
Sure. I mean, it's a different deal. You know, it's the first time I've dealt with it. But Jay's a special young man is to be able to do both. And it's strictly voluntary on his part. You know, he comes to see me, and we'll go over some stuff, you know, try to, just so he's not so far behind when he gets back to us. But like Coach Elliott said, he's helping that baseball team win a bunch of games. So that's where he's needed right now for the University of Virginia. But he he was at practice this morning for the first half before he had to go to class, just sitting in meetings, learning a little bit, you know, holding the script behind the play, looking at the signals. So he's, you know, mentally he's getting into it, but you know, he's all baseball right now.
Hey, Taylor Preston with CBS 19, kind of following up on that. I know a lot of his schedule is devoted to baseball right now, but do you find ways to kind of fit it in there for him, or just kind of make notes for him so they can catch up at times?
Yeah, we do different things. You know, we'll go over if he's available. You know, some mornings he is, some mornings not. We'll go over a script, or we'll go over an install. You know, and I'm always up at the office, so whenever he's got free time, shoot me a text, come over. We'll watch some stuff, just so once he gets here, and you know, after baseball season, it's not like whoa, right? Yeah, let's put it in front of him, so he can be right there with us when we get in summer.
What's it like working with a little bit of a smaller quarterback room right now? I guess you just have Brenden, Davis, and Jared in there right now.
Yeah, so 3 guys. So all 3 guys got to be ready to go. Obviously, we're running 3s. So it's a really good experience for my man Jared. Hadn't got a lot of practice reps before this, and he's come out and responded really well. And then Davis should be a senior in high school. So that's always shocking to me when the mid-years guys, you know, back in the day, you didn't have a bunch of them, but they're supposed to be in high school, you know, going to prom. So you take that in part, but he's developing just fine.
And then you're a younger guy. I mean, it wasn't too long ago that you were out there on the field playing for App State. Just how does that kind of play into the relationship, especially with Brenden, who's an older quarterback? You know, how do you kind of use that to your advantage?
Sure. I mean, I was, you know, just in it. You know, you said it not too long ago, and just going through what he's going through right now. So I've kind of, especially in today's world, it's a little different than going through it, you know, 25 years ago. Social media, you know, all the things pulling on you, pulling you in different directions. So I've kind of been through what he's been through at a smaller scale, so helping him in that part, but also, you know, having a respectful partnership with him. Like, hey, I'm gonna coach you hard, and we it's a two-way communication. So if you're seeing something different than I'm seeing it, let's get it right, right? 'Cause I don't want any gray. I don't want a gray area. Right, we have gray area that gets us beat. So as long as we're living in the black and white, and we're on the same page, and with that partnership, it works nicely so far.
Hey Taylor, Jerry Ratcliffe, JerryRatcliffe.com. Welcome to Charlottesville.
Thank you.
Brendan's been known as a pretty high IQ quarterback. What's impressed you in that part of that aspect of his game?
Yeah, just picking up a whole different style of playbook. You know, he's been in the meetings with us before spring ball, but just picking that up and then actually coming out here and showing us that he's picked it up well, right? Because we can sit in the meeting rooms, we can draw up plays, and he can get it right on the board. But actually, bullets flying, coming out here and picking it up, getting the ball out of his hands, being accurate. You know, we talk a whole bunch about, you know, Brenden being we don't need a LeBron James, a Kobe Bryant. We need Brenden to be, you know, a Rajon Rondo, a Steve Nash, right? Get it to our guys in space, right? How quickly can we get it out to Wicks, to Lavelle, in space, right, where they can make plays, right, where they can be the big time guys. So we're doing that, and it's been surprising to me how quickly he gets the ball out and how quickly he's picked it up on the field.
Bronco said that last year that Brenden had all the throws that you would want out of a quarterback. And you said that it's about what the trigger man is good at. What is he really good at in terms of making all the throws? A
lot of timing routes, right? He trusts his guys, so he's getting the rock out on time. So you're talking about out routes, any single timing routes to the boundary. He's really good at that, putting it on a string. And like you said, he can make the field throw, right? Can you make the 15-yard come back to the field? Can you make the whole shot to the field? He can make those throws, right? And one thing we're working on this year is his touch, right? His touch, getting on top of the ball, letting these guys run underneath it, right? No, we don't want any 0% throws, so we don't want any overthrows, wasted plays. Let these guys get a chance to go make a play.
As a former quarterback, how do you like the receiving targets that you guys have?
Oh, I love them. I love them. It makes, tell you what, it makes our job easier as a quarterback, right? Because we get this run game going and we get these receivers out on the edge. It's at that point it's just math, and how's the defense going to guard it all with the solid run game, and then these guys getting on your toes in the secondary. So it's every quarterback's dream.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Taylor, it's Mike in Richmond again. I'm curious. I imagine there's not just one way to coach quarterbacks. So while there's certain fundamentals that every coach probably agrees on, you probably have things you like or emphasize or teach that's maybe different than the previous coach. How do you blend it with a veteran quarterback? Like, I imagine you don't want to, change his delivery or do anything massive, but there are things that probably you feel strongly about. How do you blend all of that?
Yeah, it's mostly just footwork within the offense. So like matching our drops to our routes, different routes we have, matching drops with Brenden. That's mostly it, right? You don't want to change a whole bunch of stuff. And we came in here, let Brenden learn this offense. Let his play conform to this offense. But at the end of the day, let Brenden be Brenden, right? There's a fine line you got to walk every day to try to get the right recipe. But your coaching guy is different, right? I'm coaching Brenden a little different than I'm coaching Davis, right? So you got to coach those guys a little different. And but mostly with Brenden, fundamental-wise, we're just working on matching our drops with our routes, getting the ball out on time.
We got time for one more question.
Hey, Brenden had mentioned that the offense is very diverse. I'm just wondering, what's the advantage to that as a quarterback when you can have a bunch of different things that you guys do in an offense? What would you kind of say to that?
Well, for us, we're trying to get your best players in space, right? That's what everybody's trying to do, in football. How can I get my best players in space, right? If we got to hide somebody here and send it on a naked and get it out to the flat, get them in space, or we throwing a go ball to them, different things like that. But for us, it looks complex, but we're running the same play. So easy for us, complicated for the defense. Get their eyes in the wrong spot and get our guys in space, right? And that's just kind of what we're looking for.